Thank you for taking the time to tune in with us. Here on Unclamped, we recognize that every patient and caregiver carries a story, each one shaped by unique experiences, challenges, and triumphs. Before we dive in, we want to take a few minutes to introduce ourselves so you can get to know the voices behind the mic, the journeys that brought us together here, and the passion that fuels this space. Because this isn't just a podcast, it really is about community, and every story matters.
I'm your host, along with Gaby and Crystal, and today we'll be discussing the life-changing shift that comes with receiving a central line and how it changed everything. Gaby, when you first heard the term TPN, what did you think it was?
Yeah, I really didn't know what it was. I think I kind of learned along the way. My son went on TPN when he was 2 days old, and we didn't really know till he was 3 weeks old, like that he was on TPN once he started getting sick. Once they had to explain to me that he was in liver failure and why. And that's really when I kind of found out that he was on TPN, and I was just kind of scared. I thought it was something bad. I was like, we need to get him off TPN because this is what's making him sick. And so that was my first reaction to hearing he was on TPN.
Did they come in and have a talk with you and educate you on what it was, or did they kind of just leave you to your own devices? Did you hit Google? What did you do? What were those initial moments? I mean, I know you were scared, but how did you navigate that?
So he was physically sick. So they had to come in and tell me why he was physically sick and why things were getting worse every day. And so they did kind of you means.
You made the association that the TPN was what was making him sick, because at the moment and at that time that was your first exposure was, this is making my baby sick.
Yeah, and at that time I didn't know the difference between TPN and then lipids, and so by changing his lipids, he got better. So then I saw that and I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, that's definitely scary. Crystal, what about you? What was your initial exposure to the term and the therapy?
So given my background and my history, I already knew what TPN was way before I was even considering going on it. Since I worked in the biopharmaceutical industry, I knew what parenteral nutrition was because we made components for parenteral nutrition. So I was fortunate that I was already set up for that success and not having to learn the crazy vernaculars and all the terms. And I knew what was in it and how it was going to work and what things could be some of the side effects of it. So I had a completely different experience than Gaby did, but that's just because of our times of life and also my history. So I didn't hear it and think, oh, this is going to kill me. I heard it and thought, oh, great, my body's finally going to get what it needs.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I know for me and with our experience, I have 2 children on TPN, which I've shared, and both have kind of reached that point in their lives in an unconventional way. The diagnosis is not a straightforward one where you would typically think this child is a candidate for TPN. So with that being said, it was drilled into us by all of our GI providers and the community, really, which does make sense that it's a last case resort. It's really something that you have to really explore and try all options before starting TPN. So when it came to that point for both children, that was actually the path and that was what we were going to need to do for them. It was extremely anxiety provoking. One, I felt like I was failing as a parent because how did I get to the last case? How did I get to the last resort possible? But also it was painted to us as very high risk and very life threatening and less on the focus of life sustaining and quality of life. So I think that was the biggest trigger and hardship for me, was navigating and changing my perspective of what is TPN for me and for my children and what it was going to do for us as a family.
I actually had to convince my doctors that it was going to be life-sustaining versus they were trying to tell me that it was going to potentially kill me because I was on TPN. And I'm like, no, if I don't go on TPN, then I am going to die probably within the next 6 months, because I was so undernourished and I didn't have any other abilities with my dystonia and stuff. So I had to convince my medical team that it wasn't going to kill me, and instead that it would actually let me survive, when they were telling me the same thing, that it's a life ending therapy.
And I think for us, like, we were never told it was last resort, or like, I didn't know anyone on it. Like, I didn't know anything about it. So it was just, this is what it is. Like, he was born, next day, you're on TPN, and that's what's going to be.
I mean, and as essential as it is to go through the steps and to do your due diligence and try to reserve TPN as a last resort, you have a lot of trauma along the way. I mean, I went from a child that had limited access from all of the times of her coming in extremely dehydrated and trying to get a line, or blowing lines because she was in gut dysmotility, and trying to run high rate PPN through that line, which is a peripheral parenteral nutrition. So it created a presentation also for my daughter that I think could have been less dramatic or intense. But again, because of the way it was described to us and explained to us, that we feared what we didn't know and what we didn't understand. And then when we came home, frightened and scared to death with lots of tears and shaky hands, we started establishing a routine. And suddenly we weren't rushing to the hospital for dehydration because she was getting everything she needed, bypassing her gut and not having to worry about those demands and what that was doing to her body. We just saw kind of like a calming of the seas, and we started being able to do things and make plans and start like really experiencing life out of the hospital. So for us, that's what TPN was, is keeping us home and not in the hospital.
How long do you think it took, though? Like, once you were home on TPN, to like, were you just like, because she was already older, like you guys went out right away? Or like, did it take some time to like even go to the grocery store with her connected?
Right. So, so it was a process from all the enteral feeds. So I was pretty comfortable, going out and navigating like some technology assistance, if you will. But no, I was terrified at first. I was terrified of her getting sick, of her getting a fever. I was terrified of setting up the TPN. I was fortunate enough where I had access to shift care nursing. And the nurses that I had initially were pretty fantastic. And they tough loved me into learning everything. Because at first I was just so overwhelmed. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to touch that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to hurt my baby. Even though she was 4, she's still my baby. And, one nurse in particular, she was just like, you have to learn this. You have to learn this and you have to be able to do it. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for that tough love, because that got me more comfortable faster. Whereas I feel like in my situation, if I had just stayed hands off, I think my fears and anxieties would have mounted or taken longer to overcome. What about you guys?
When TPN started to become less scary for me, actually, it went from being not scary, from me talking my doctors into it, to it being fairly scary for a few years, when several of my close friends that were on TPN had passed away. And they literally passed away within 6 months of each other. And so during that period of time, which was already on PN for well over 5 years, going on 5 years, or around that time mark. And then they passed, and they both also had the same underlying diagnosis as I do in the mitochondrial world. And so when they passed away, so it was pretty scary. But once we got through their two big episodes, both of their passings, and I got through my first infection 5 years into it. I wasn't scared the whole 5 years, and then it came 5 years in is when my scary moment came. But then I'm like, no, like I got this. I will definitely work on advocating better and not allowing them to remove my port just because I have an infection that could be cleared with other things. So thanks. That's a great question, and we could probably unpack some more of that in another episode.
Yeah, Gabby, you said you were in the NICU for 7 months. So like,
Yeah.
what did going home look like? So I mean, like, were you
Yes.
scared? Did you have everything set up?
So I think I went through like different phases of scaredness, and like when TPN became less scary, but it was still scary. Like it was less scary to be on TPN in the hospital because he was like 6 months old. I'm like, okay, less scary. But now I have to go home, and now I'm really scared of TPN at home. So I mean, I think TPN got less scary for me in the hospital when he started doing better. Like he couldn't tolerate feeds. So TPN was literally what's keeping him alive, and like seeing him healthy, seeing him like meet those milestones in the hospital of like sitting up or like doing regular baby stuff, like that's what made me like appreciate TPN. And it wasn't scary because now we had his liver under control, we had him on his meds, like everything was great. Um, and then once we came home at 7 months, it was scary again because now it's all on me. Like I had to do TPN every night. I had to figure out how to like work with a crawling baby now on TPN. Like just had to figure out all the regular mom stuff. And I was a first time mom at that point, plus on TPN. So yeah, I think for me, maybe like once he was like a year old, things started getting less scary. We started going to the park, like we started exploring, around town, and then I remember he was like maybe a year and a half. We were in the Target parking lot, and so one thing that helped me be less scary is being prepared. Um, like I learned more and more from other families, like on social media, of like how they prepare. So I always had like backup stuff in my bag when we went out, and that would make me feel better. But one time in the Target parking lot, like I was, hooking him up to his car seat, and I clipped his tubing, and it just started like squirting everywhere. And I didn't panic. I like knew I had stuff in the backpack to fix it. And so like I just took a deep breath, got my stuff, I fixed it, put new tubing and everything. And then like I just, hoped he didn't get an infection, and he didn't. After that, I felt like super confident. I was like, okay, like we just made it through this crazy moment. It's 3 days later, he doesn't have an infection. Like we could do this.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think that that's important, to really focus on like quality of life and being able to deal with those hard moments. I know that that was really helpful, for me as well, and for our experience. I feel like trying to normalize things as much as possible was really helpful for us. My husband and I made, kind of like the pact early on that if this is what we're going to do and it's going to be life threatening, we're going to live the highest quality of life possible. I think that focusing our energy on that and less on, all of the drawbacks of being on TPN really helped us and helped both of our children kind of, adjust to their new norm, and dealing with that. So if you could go back, back to when you had that first NICU conversation, what do you wish someone would have said to you? Like, what do you wish you knew?
I wish like they just kind of told me what TPN at home was once they knew that he would be on TPN for a long time. It was kind of just like the guessing game in my head the whole time. Like, okay, he's on this thing called TPN. Okay, like, will we get off? Will we get off? And like, I'm sure they knew before I knew that he was going to go home on it. And so I just kind of wish they told, I imagined everything in the hospital looking exactly the same at home. Like, the hospital pumps are bigger. um it's on this big pole, like he can't move much, So I imagine that same setup at home. Like, I wish they would have showed me home pumps and like home stuff even before like we got like I did eventually see that stuff during training and like once we were ready to go home. But for months before that, I'm envisioning something totally different and scaring myself, and it wasn't that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. What about you, Crystal?
Just stick to my guns and know that it wasn't the PN or the TPN that was causing any of the issues. And knowing that for for both of my friends that passed away, it was just the course of the mitochondrial disease. And for me, like translocation infections, just truly fully believing in myself and not letting other people get into my head, because I'm thankful. I'm actually thankful for the opposite that Gabby said. Gabby was happy that she had social media. I'm thankful that I wasn't connected strongly into a social media group, although I was connected into a good support group where I met some amazing people, including Jayme. Um, and so that helped. And but it's truly sticking to my guns and not letting other people get into my head and change what I knew was the right thing to do. Definitely would have been my advice to my younger self.
Yeah, no, I can agree with a lot of what you're saying. Gabby, one of the things that you said that resonated with me was like setting up that expectation. And I know that was really hard for us because with both situations for our children, because it was kind of like, well, this is a last resort, but they're gonna be on and they're gonna be off. So I almost didn't want to commit to the therapy because I kept looking for an endpoint. And I didn't really allow myself to accept it at first because I was like, okay, like this is just a means to an end. And then things are going to go back to quote unquote normal or what I think my normal should be. So it was kind of like always just waiting for that other shoe to drop. And finally, when we realized like, this isn't going away, like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great, happy thought that my kids can live without TPN, but the reality is they can't. So I think once
Yeah.
I accepted that and kind of like drowned out the noise, like, yeah, of course, we always want them to not be on TPN, clearly, but this
Yep.
is my life and I can't keep living for a future life or waiting to start or resume a normalcy until that happens. This is life now. And if they get off in 3 months, great, like awesome, high fives all around. But if this is like our year, 2 years, 10 years life, that's okay too. And I think that providers need to be more transparent with that, or at least set up patients for that possibility. Like, I think that anytime a patient discharges home from hospital, that the expectation should be like, this is like, we need to make adjustments and if we can get off, great. That's always the goal. But also it's okay if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think that that's really important.
Like, I think for me, I like when people are straight up and honest. So like,
Right.
I remember a doctor telling me like, and it was the moment where I kind of accepted that this is what it is and it's okay. Like, we could have the goal of maybe getting off one day, but it's not going to be the focus anymore. Because he was like, his intestines just don't have good motility. And he was like, his intestines just aren't great. And it is what it is. And he just said it like that. And I was like, that's all I needed.
Yeah, you can move forward now. It's like, okay, no, for sure. And I think that that's like that's a big problem for a lot of patients and families, is that, they're not really set up to prepare for long term.
It seems to be one of the conversations that they don't want to have, is keeping you on potentially for the rest of your life. And the rest of your life, meaning for the next, potentially, in my case, 40 years, approximately, versus, Gabby's son, the rest of his life, hopefully, is the next 80 or so years. And so it's definitely something that we need to keep discussing and having the conversations with our providers and help educating them how to talk to us. So,
Crystal, I really liked how you said like you wish you would have just like listened to yourself and was confident in yourself from the very beginning. Like, Jayme, do you have any advice like that for caregivers of like one thing that you wish, you would have said to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, like mother's intuition is real in my case. I mean, I didn't believe in it until I had my two children, or I have three children, but two that really needed some extra attention, and me really listening to my gut feeling and what, like, again, like I didn't know what was wrong, but I always knew there was something wrong. And just keep asking the questions, keep bringing it up. If it's a big deal to you, it should be a big deal to everyone that's caring for your child. I mean, I think that this is a great topic. I think we could go on forever because there's so many experiences and things that we've had to go through. But I think like talking about that transition and working towards finding that new normal, because it really just takes so many months and time. Everybody's timetable is different, really, but no matter where you are in life, there's always going to be the next transition, and then it's kind of like a reset. So I think that it's just important to remember where we started, especially when we get overwhelmed, that, we're doing it. We're going a long way.
Yeah, like we've made it this far. We could keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to thank you for tuning in with us on Unclamped. We hope today's conversation reminded you that every diagnosis holds a story, one of strength, compassion, and connection. We want to give a heartfelt thank you to our sponsor, AvivoRx, for their commitment to supporting patients and families through their nutrition support journey. Their dedication makes conversations like this possible and provides a platform for the patient voice. We'd also love to hear from you too. If you have a story to share or a topic you'd like us to explore, reach out anytime at nutritiongroup4all@gmail.com. And be sure to find us on YouTube, follow along on our social media, and listen wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.